Burndown charts. Sprint burndown charts. Okay, percentage, total number of sprint days, and story points. So, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, all the way to day 10. 2 week sprint, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Now I have 40 story points in a sprint. My team committed 40 story points in a sprint and in a 2 week sprint. So now, this is what I call it as an ideal line, IDEAL, not ideally. Okay, so now we track this on a day-to-day basis. When we never had any tools, I used to draw this on a flip chart, put it on the wall at the team, and I used to draw it on a day-to-day basis with hand and, you can have scale and everything. So the way how I used to do, so let us say for example at the end of day 1, and if your real status is above this line, then you are behind your sprint commitments. If your real status is below this line, then you are ahead of your sprint commitments. At the end of day 1, the to-do is 40. At the end of day 2, the to-do is still 40. At the end of day 3, they completed one 3-point story and get it accepted by the product owner. The to-do is 40 minus 3, 37. At the end of day 4 also it's 37. At the end of day 5, they completed one 5-point story and get it accepted by the product owner. The to-do is 37 minus 5, 32. Now, let me put a point here. Now, if you try to join all these lines, now how is the sprint going on? If you try to extrapolate this line, you are meeting away from day 10. Okay, so that is what it is. Hey team, what do you think we should do? That is what I do in a daily scrum every day in the morning. Hey, where are we today? I put a dot and I connect the dot. It takes me roughly 10 seconds to do this before even I start the daily scrum. So make your burn down chart visible to them every day and then start your daily scrum. And after the daily scrum, I ask the same question. Now, what do you think we should do? Ask the question. So I have seen some teams where they are pretty mischievous teams. They are pretty flat until the last day, and the last day suddenly come down. Are you seeing that kind of patterns? Yes. So you are waterfall teams, or you don't update tools properly. They finish all the work on the last day.
Testing testing part is done.
So that is why what we say is, can you try to implement swarming, where multiple people, when you try to implement swarming, you do this gradual down rather than flat until the last day and suddenly come down. That kind of a pattern is very dangerous. Not finishing, I used to send this burn down chart to one of my director. He used to tell me that our teams are doing some magic on the last day. We want them to do the same magic every day. Okay, so that burn down, the essence of a burn down is gradual down to 0 rather than a spike down on one fine day. And initially, when I was a new Scrum Master, I used to put the task hours here. Even whatever is there in your book, I have given task hours here. But as a Scrum Master, what I found was, my hours used to complete faster than user stories. Let us say I have 200 hours here. They used to all consume by the end of week 1, but only one user story was completed. So that is why it was totally misleading for me. So I stopped removing all the hours and started putting story points. That gives you a meaningful down. So irrespective of how many hours they consume, unless they get it accepted by the product owner, the burn down will not move down. Okay. So now if you wanted to put hours, it's up to you. This is one variant of it. That is another variant of it. Whatever you prefer. But if you are putting hours here, you should know the pros and cons of it. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So date-driven releases. So you have a question? Usually in the middle of the sprint, scope change should not happen. The reason why I track that is sometimes I have a mischievous product owner who try to push something in the middle of the sprint. So for this person, I used to track this also, and I wanted to go to his manager and show him that this person is messing up my Scrum. That is why I was also tracking that. So after I started tracking that for 2 or 3 sprints, this person never did any scope change in the middle of the sprint. See, again, you should clearly track who is doing the real damage. So that is why I used to do that scope change. When we never had any tool, that is an Excel, this one, I used to do it in Excel. There are only 2 tools at that point of time, my hand and marker or Excel. That was a burn down in 2008. That is the way how I used to draw a burn down. Now you have all the zeros and all, and people don't update tools. We are back to square one, the same problem. Okay, so now it's up to you how you wanted to deal with it. So date-driven releases, size of the backlog divided by historical velocity. We already talked about it. Now budgeting for a release, I already explained you. Whatever I explained there, the same thing. Once the cost of a sprint is 20,000 USD, which includes team compensation, infrastructure, space, rent, power, etc. The cost of the whole release will be 80,000 USD in this case. This is a release burn down chart. This is a line graph, a sprint burn down chart. This is a line graph. This is a bar graph. The meaning is still the same. Only the representation is only different. Okay, so initially the baseline scope was 140 story points, and we decided to burn down the scope. And based on our historical velocity, we forecasted that it's going to take 8 sprints. And the team is burning down at the end of sprint 1, 120 to do, 100 to do, 85 to do, 67 to do. Now look what the product owner is doing. He's adding new scope. Now if you try to extrapolate this line, and if you try to extrapolate this line, we are meeting a 10th sprint instead of 8th sprint. Hey product owner, what do you think we should do? It is good that you are adding some scope, but can you remove whatever scope you have added here from this, so that it balances out and you still be able to deliver by 8th sprint. And if you try to add more sprints, the longer the time frame, the more you miss the feedback loops. That is why, in order to make sure that you get feedbacks early, you don't want to add more sprints. If you start adding more sprints, you become another waterfall. Okay, so that is what I would do. So this is it clearly shows you the projection, the forecast. Okay, and this is the scope.
Yes, scope creep does not happen.
There is no scope creep in our world. So scope creep is more of a project thinking. For a fixed scope, where you have to deliver by this. If you have let us go back to our definition of a project. The definition of a project is fixed scope. But if you have changes, then I no longer want to call it as a project. If you don't want to call it as a project, then scope creep and all doesn't. We don't talk about it. See, that is where the difference between project thinking and product thinking. If you wanted to really do projects, keep the scope fixed forever. But if you don't want to, if you deal with changes and you still want a scope creep, every CR is usually a scope creep for the initial baseline scope.
But then other we say we welcome change. Actually, we are creating a scope creep.
Scope creep with reference to what? But you are also in waterfall also you are creating scope creep.
Yeah.
In waterfall also you are creating scope creep, and that is the argument. So you have a fixed scope initially, and then after CRs will come. Each CR is a scope creep to the baseline scope. So it doesn't have a project characteristics, according to me. That is why we teach more of product management rather than project management. How much ever is required, as the market changes, the priorities will change, and then you start accommodating whatever is highly valuable to them rather than giving everything at once. That is that's what I was trying to say. It is more of product thinking, where the evolutionary nature of product development. So yesterday I thought that this was important. Today I am thinking that this is important, but do I have a mechanism to implement that? So that is the overall big picture. And this is your story. You should be really lucky to get a fixed scope project nowadays. Show me how many projects have fixed scope. where at the beginning of an SOW you agree on a fixed scope, but it will never remain fixed. 99% of the projects do not have a fixed scope. But if you get a fixed scope, you can implement waterfall. But if you can by estimated time, if you deliver later than that, it's a late delivery. Now, there is one exercise we wanted to do a release planning. So page number 13, 14, 15 at the back. 13, 14, 15. Read through this exercise and then finish this exercise. Thirteen, 14, 15.
Increase writing
payment methods, variety of online payment methods, accepting
increase
increase the variety. Cost per square means 25 story points per square. Will the team be able to meet the release goal in 3 months?
total points
25 story points per sprint.
total story points are ഈ release goal ചെയ്യാൻ
എത്ര സ്പ്രിന്റ് ഉള്ളതാണ് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടില്ല. എത്ര സ്പ്രിന്റ്? 2 weeks sprint അല്ലേ?
അല്ല കോസ്റ്റ് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടല്ലോ. കോസ്റ്റ് പെർ
കോസ്റ്റ്
6 സ്പ്രിന്റ് ആണ്.
2 weeks sprint അല്ലേ?
അപ്പോൾ 3 മാസമില്ല.
6 സ്പ്രിന്റ്.
അപ്പോൾ 6 സ്പ്രിന്റ്.
ഇതിന് 6 sprint എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലായില്ല.
2 week അല്ലേ ഒരു സ്പ്രിന്റ്?
2 week.
3 മാസമില്ലേ താഴെ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യനിൽ?
Will the team be able to meet the
3 months. Okay.
3 months ആകുമ്പോൾ
അപ്പോൾ 6 സ്പ്രിന്റ്. അപ്പോൾ 25 into 6.
ഓ അങ്ങനെ കാൽക്കുലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യണം അല്ലേ?
2 sprint വെച്ചോ. ഒരു മാസം 2 sprint വെച്ചോ. പിന്നെ 6 sprint. പക്ഷെ അവരെന്താണ് will be able to meet it? Release goal 3 months meet ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുമെന്നാ ചോദിക്കും. 3 months
റിലീസ് കോഡ് നോക്കുന്നത് അതൊക്കെയാണ്.
per sprint is 90.
ഇത് തോന്നുന്നു ഇതാണെന്ന് തോന്നുന്നു. അതിൻ്റെ ഇതെല്ലാം കൂടെ ആഡ് ചെയ്തെടുക്കണം തോന്നുന്നു അല്ലേ? അല്ലേ നമ്മുടെ ആഡ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ആളെ പെട്ടെന്ന് ആഡ് ചെയ്ത് പറയുന്നത് പറയും. ഇതിൽ നമ്മൾ ആഡ് ചെയ്താണ് മറ്റേ ടോട്ടൽ പോയിന്റ്സ് ചെയ്യും. 8 + 3
customer I want to
8 + 3 plus 8 + 3 + 5 + 5 + 2 + 13 + 2 + 3 + 8 + 8 + 13 + 20 + 30 + 20 + 8 + 5 + 5 + 5 ഇനി ഒരു +5 + 3 + 3 + 30 + 2 + 3 plus ഒരു 1 കൂടെ ആഡ് ചെയ്യണം.
164 + 1 165
237 മാത്രം.
249. Addition is also wrong. Come on.
249 divided by 32.
ഓ അതിന്റെ 9.96
10 സ്പ്രിന്റ് എടുക്കാം.
49
അപ്രോക്സിമേറ്റ് 9.96
10 sprint.
10 sprints. So will the
49 ഉണ്ട്. Then replace to 8 months.
3 months.
10 months.
10 sprint വേണം കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ. 3 മാസം കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റില്ല.
ആ.
3 മാസം 6 സ്പ്രിന്റിൽ
10 months.
അപ്പം ഞാൻ
ആ, ഞാൻ അങ്ങനെ 10 months.
അപ്പം 3 മാസം നോക്കിയില്ലല്ലോ. ഇല്ല, 6 മാസം. 6 കിട്ടുള്ളൂ. If the team doesn't need the release in 3 months, how much more time is required? As a time, ഒരു 3 മാസം, 7, 9 അല്ല ഒരു 4 മാസം കൂടെ.
ഇല്ലല്ലോ, 10 months പോരെ. 2 months കൂടെ. 2 months.